Welcome to the Old World Fanatics, your Warhammer fantasy podcast to quench your hobby thirst for all things the Old World. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and I'm joined by Andrew today. Gomo's got the week off. How are you going today, Andrew?
Yeah. You know what I feel like? This is really weird, like we've just been discussing before we started this podcast, obviously. I feel like Mum and Dad have gone away and left us all alone at the house, and it's like, we're in charge.
It does feel like that, doesn't it? When we're given the keys to the car in the house, we're like,
that's it. It's a bit like, you sure? You sure, guys?
Oh, man. Yeah, no. Well, I'm sure we'll manage. We've got some big news to talk about today.
Oh, there
Massive
is.
news. We couldn't miss out on it this week.
Nah.
Yeah.
We even had Gomo's blessing. He's like, we need to get this out. We need to quench that thirst.
Quench the thirst
of the audience.
Yes. Yes. So we will be dealing with that shortly. I think we won't really cover much news because the news is mainly the big announcement, the big Boxing Day announcement that came out.
Yeah, it was
big. And then I think we'll cover a little bit of hobby time, and then we'll get straight into that. I think there wasn't a huge amount to talk about really in terms of hobby this week.
Josh's hobby time.
Even I didn't get it's Christmas. There's been a lot of non-hobby stuff going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you get up to much since last week?
I just got some more contrasts, as we know. I just did the Gracia on my the Gracia priming on my high elf mage mounted.
Yes, your mage.
Threw the Null oil over it just to try and do just like an effect, I suppose, like that Zenithal sort of priming. And the Zenithal sort of didn't really work because it was more of a glaze, a darker glaze. So I'm just having problems making that contrast pop. So I'm just going to keep going with it. I'm just too far gone. And I'll probably just do a lot of highlighting to just try and bring it back, which is a bit of a bummer because, contrast meant to speed it up, but it's sort of slowed it down.
Have you tried doing a bit of a general dry brush once you put the null oil over, just to try to bring the brightness back up again?
Probably should have, but yeah, sort of beyond that point now, because I've done a lot of the big surfaces. So yeah, there's not a lot of point at the moment. But yeah, next time that could definitely be a bit of a cheats way. But I mean, look, it's no quicker. Like it would have been quicker if I just had the white or the Gracia over a black or something like that.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you always try to do these cheats and time saving things, isn't it? And it just I find that unless you know exactly the right technique, you end up spending as much time fiddling with it and trying to get the colors that you wanted originally.
Yeah. It was more of just a thing. I didn't have the black. I just had like a normal spray can of black, and I knew it just comes on too thick. So I was like, I'll see people do this. I'll try this, and yeah, just didn't pan out. Yeah. How'd you go? Seems like you got a bit done.
A little bit. Yeah. Mainly just printing stuff off this week. So I talked about the Dark Elf Tower and Hill I was doing last week, and it took a bunch of prints. I think I did. It was over 9 or 10 prints that I had to do on my little Mars 3, which is a relatively small printer. So it takes a while when I'm trying to print these fairly large pieces of terrain. But I managed to get that done, and I've started sort of put it together. I had to do a bit of green stuffing to sort of cover up some areas, and then I have got a little bit of warping on one of the bottom parts of the tower. Just from where the supports have come away. And it's rather than reprinting that, I'm actually just going to try and fill it in with maybe some vines or something. I don't know. I feel sometimes when you have something go wrong when you're making terrain, if anything, it creates a creative opportunity for some uniqueness.
Yeah, 100%. Especially like a tower. There'd be lots of.
So I feel like that's I don't want to just have to throw away the piece of resin and redo it. I'd rather just try to incorporate it and actually, make the best of it I can. So that's coming together. It's mostly cured now, and I've mostly put together. So I'm sort of accumulating those bits, so that when I'm ready to go for doing all my proper snow and painting it up and stuff, I've got the right setup. But the other thing I'm thinking about is just trying to work out a forest type thing for sort of a northern Nagaroth waste.
Oh yeah.
And because that's the thing, like I'm like, do I go for like a pine tree sort of, evergreen covered in snow type look?
Yeah.
Or do I do more of a Chaos Waste style where it's more like gnarled trees that look kind of dead with no leaves, with snow on it? Like, I don't know. Like I feel like I could go either way.
Or somewhere in the middle. You can maybe meet it halfway with a few dead and struggling for life trees.
Yeah, maybe. Like, I feel like I have to do. I mean, I might even do one of each, just so that I've got the option. But I feel like it's either because like the cedar trees, like the pine ones, you typically, I do end up putting foliage on them. But I could go for like a darker color or something like that as well. And maybe that would work okay. But that's sort of what I'm thinking about trying to do at the moment, and then trying to work out like a forest base I could work out as well. But I have to be thinking about that over the next couple of weeks. What else did I do? I did some so I painted up some of the matchstick fences that I've been building. I started the painting process on those. Basically just doing a little base coat and wash, and then just dry brushing some highlights over them. And the matchsticks, because they're wood, they take up the wash pretty well. They have a nice little bit of they suck it up, but they also like they just got the right, just enough wood texture on them. That it does look fairly good once you've got a wash and a highlight on them. It's got a nice wooden texture. And the other thing I like about the matchsticks is there's a lot of natural variability, where some of the sticks are actually a little bit bent or a little bit curved, or just they're not quite uniform, and it just looks like some medieval guy has once upon a time spent a couple of weeks building this fence. Which is sort of the effect that I was hoping to get. So I'm sort of embarked on that. I've done one of the fields, but I have to do the others. And I did spend one session painting up a little bit more of the coal ones, but I've got a little bit more to go on those. And finally, I was printing off some of the scorpions that Gomo has been requesting me to done, and hopefully he really wants me to get it done because he wants to take him to CanCon. So I've started on he wants 3 of them, I think, so I printed off 1.5 at this point. They're funny though, because
he wants a set of 3 of the same.
He wants a set of 3, so they all go together. Whereas because I feel like he was worried, and I agree, if you just printed off 1 to go with the other 2 genuine GW ones, the one might stick out. I mean, it probably not matter because they're all individual, right? But I think he just felt like scale wise, these ones are probably going to be bigger, and if you just want them all as a set,
true.
And printing off 3 is not a big deal anyway. No. Like it's fine. Like I certainly don't mind doing that at all. But the thing I noticed about them is they each have 8 legs on the torso.
Right.
And then they've also got 2 forelimbs with the claws. Andrew, these things have got like 10 legs. That's not an arachnid. The scorpions are supposed to be arachnids. It's supposed to have 6 legs on the bottom. 2 legs on the front. I am a stickler for anatomy, but but I will send him all the 10
fantasy.
legs. Indeed. I mean, let's ignore the ridiculous skull that's sitting on top of the end of its tail and all the other sizes.
I want 8 legs, damn it.
Exactly. I've come to accept the ridiculous fiends, the Slannesh fiend with the backwards legs, but I can't deal with extra legs on the scorpion. No, not happening.
Let's go.
Oh dear. That is all the hobby really for me. So I feel like it's been a festive week.
Yes.
Not as much hobby as we normally do, but that's because we've also had some distraction going on. Let's get into the big article.
I was hanging out for this. I was trying to work out what time it actually drops, like Eastern Australian time, and it seems like it must be around 10 a.m. I didn't know if they drop at the same time or around about the same time every release. So yeah, I wasn't too sure, but yeah, if I'll check it next time. But yeah, it's there was definitely a 10 a.m. sort of Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah. You mean in terms of when the actual like the preview article dropped?
Yeah, like when I don't know if there's any time that they specifically drop or if they just drop it sometime on the day. I don't know if there's like a scheduled drop time sort of thing for these articles. I couldn't find anything on the net. It was just like, it was kind of annoying because it's Boxing Day, and then like, well, was it? No, it wasn't.
It was. I thought it was Boxing Day sort of evening. Wasn't it like late-ish?
Was it the next day?
Because today's the day after Boxing Day that we're recording.
Yeah, it is. I forget. I just remembered I was looking for it. I couldn't find it. And then I was trying to find it. And then Colin Gomo sent it through. And I was like, oh, damn it. You missed it. Because I just kept going on to the community page and just every hour or so. And yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know if there's a specific time. I had a feeling it was going to be a big one. I was just excited for it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Of course. I just waited for everyone to announce it. And I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I usually do, but yeah.
I was preoccupied watching the cricket, I must admit. But that's
Boxing Day test.
Yeah. Anyway, do you want to go through the article? I like the first paragraph of this, by the way, because it just confirms some of these ridiculous jokes that they've been hiding in these articles.
It was just I hit that straight away. I was just like, oh yeah, Josh is going to be loving this. So yeah, I'll go through. We'll stop at every section, and we'll just have a bit of an unboxing of each
box.
Yep, of each box. So we'll start off. Fun fact: Boxing Day gets its name from an ancient necromantic practice in which the skeletons of the dead were removed from their coffins, ready for reanimation. Which is appropriate because here at Warhammer we have more than a few skeletons ready to take out of our closet. Yes, there we go.
Such an interesting factor. I mean, you learn something new with these articles every time.
Yeah.
It's so authoritative. Boxing Day. Yeah.
So it's the Tomb Kings. It's funny how they did this because obviously there was that bit of a leak. It was sort of like all bit coincidental, but at the same time they hit the Bretonian box too, so you got a bit of everything here. But it's good to see the two gore boxes. I
actually thought they were just going to do the Tomb King box reveal for this article, to be honest. Because when they previewed it last week, it was like it would be an off-white Christmas or something, and I was like, okay, they're probably just the Tomb Kings. But
that's it. It's like cat's out of the bag anyway, so it's like
yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we knew the Tomb King box was coming, right?
That's
We'd
it.
Seen it.
There is no single launch box for Warhammer, the old world. As we know, there's going to be two separate, quite large army boxes, each containing a full 1250 point army with dozens of all plastic miniatures. Obviously, you're going to be getting the hardback rulebook, which is 352 pages. Not too shabby, quite a large rulebook. The old world rule set, 4-page reference sheet, which obviously we were talking about last time, where they reference sheets, and they are, which is good. I do like myself a nice reference sheet. 20 D6 dice, the scatter dice, the templates, and the whippy sticks.
Yeah,
and transfer sheets. Yep, got to have those whippy sticks. With the Tomb Kings, as we know, I'll just touch on it quickly. Already discussed this. So it's got the Lich Priest, the Lich Priests have exhumed the horde of 93 Tomb Kings, including the magnificent new Lich Priest on
the Bone Dragon.
Necrolith Bone Dragon.
Necrolith, yeah.
Which can additionally be built Tomb King on foot, which I think is really cool that you can get that extra model in there, or be built instead as a Tomb King on Bone Dragon. So yeah, they were both pretty nice kits. Obviously, the heads. The head's not everybody's taste, but yeah.
Yeah. How long do you think it'll be before you can buy that kit separately? Do you think?
Yeah.
Because I imagine at launch it'd be just in that box, right?
Yeah. Maybe 3 months, 6 months, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Surely not too long.
Yeah, surely not too long.
There'll be a heap on eBay, I reckon. I reckon people will be getting these and splitting them up like they always do. So
yeah, that's true.
Be too much of a shortage.
40 will be buying them up.
Yeah, got my 40 skeleton warriors, 32 skeleton archers, 16 horsemen, and 3 chariots. So yeah, saw that. Pretty decent horde.
It is. It's a good size army. You know, like as we were discussing last week. It's like it's really nice that you're buying one box and you're getting actually quite a good core force. Not just some core guys too, but like lots of other interesting stuff in there. The chariots are nice and that type of thing.
Yeah.
It's a much more complete army than your sort of the halfway things you used to get with the starter boxes that had, two armies competing against each other because they obviously wouldn't have enough space to really have either of those armies to really be filled out. Which was sort of the worst of both worlds because then you wouldn't have enough. It wouldn't have enough of an army to play with each other, and often you wouldn't really. You'd be buying it by yourself anyway, so you just sort of end up having two half armies.
Yeah,
and it'd be like, what do I do with this? So I feel like this is a much better design, having one box with one fairly large army, and then you can if your friend has also bought one box, you can both play against each other. Like I think that works so much better.
Yeah, well that's it. Like they're talking about that. Like each box contains 1250 points. So it seems like they are quite reasonably similar in point cost.
I think so. Quite good. Because I actually put. I mean, I don't know the point values, but obviously because they haven't released any point values apart from the Ground Knights at this point. But I put the Bretonnia box into the army builder for 6th ed. Just to see, I was like, I wonder if this actually adds up to 1250, in 6th ed. And now part of it was hard necessarily because there isn't really a duke in 6th ed, just a baron, and obviously it depends on his equipment. But just for I think it added up to for a basic lord on Pegasus and the rest of the guys set up in the way they are here with 2 units of meta arms and 2 units of 6 Knights of the Realm. I think it was like 1100 points or just over that, like 1120 or something. And I guess if you add in 100 points of magic items to the Lord, you might start to get just over 1200. But it was interesting because I was like, I wonder if, because I was actually expecting it might be more. If there was significant point reductions in the costs of these things, because how often when we went from 6th to 8th, a lot of the core units did seem to drop in price. So you ended up with these much bigger armies at 2000.
Definitely.
But me doing that little experiment didn't seem to make a massive difference. So I'll be interested to see what the points values ultimately are.
Yeah, well I think that would be good. It seems like that's the general consensus from a majority of the community about not having the huge scale, I suppose, of the armies in 8th edition. Which, I mean, look, you probably realistically you might only have 1 or 2 more units in an 8th edition army, so they weren't stupidly huger. But yeah, there was definitely a larger feel to an 8th game than a 6th game.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, we'll go through. What do we get? The Bretonnian box. So you get 76 miniatures.
76.
So obviously the Lord on the Pegasus, Royal Pegasus, can be built as a Duke or Baron. So you got backed up by 12 Bretonnian Knights of the Realm. You got 36 Brett Men-at-Arms and 24 Peasant Bowmen with 2 defense stakes, 3 Peg Knights, and obviously the transfer sheets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it? It was 16. Did it used to be in the Men-at-Arms and the Peasant Bowmen? Did they come as units of boxes of 16?
I think it might have been. I think they're double sized now.
Yeah.
So I think it might have been maybe even 18. I mean, I feel like they've put
18?
in 2 extra sprues for each one, essentially. So 36 Men-at-Arms. Oh, I didn't even think it was that much. Because they're 18. Even 18 seems like a lot. To be honest,
I thought it was 16.
I feel like it might have been 16 because I feel like it was multiples of 8.
Yeah.
I think you're right. So how did they get to 36?
Yeah, that's the weird
I
one.
thought that'd be 32. Oh, they might have one more sprue. I think because it was 4 on each sprue.
Okay.
So yeah, they may have an extra half sprue in there to get to 36. Yeah. That must be what they've done.
That'll make
sense. And then the bowman probably the same. And yeah, the Knights of the Realm, I think I can't remember if that was 8 or 6. I think it might have been 8 originally in the Knights of the Realm box. I think. A lot of transfers on that sheet, by the way. 176 transfers. I wonder how big that sheet is.
But they got those little ones, but I remember the transfer
there'll be
sheets have
tiny
quite a lot
ones
on them.
Men-at-Arms, that type of thing for sure. And the knights, I think they've probably enough transfers for 4 for each knight and that type, or 5 probably with the shield as well, actually. And then 1 for each Men-at-Arms. Interestingly, with the transfers, they mentioned the transfers at the first paragraph where they're talking about the rulebook box and the dice and everything, and they mentioned transfer sheets in that list. And there's no mention of transfers with the Tomb Kings box.
No.
And there's so I'm starting to wonder because then they mentioned transfers again with the Bretts, and it's like, what's the transfer sheets up there in the rulebook section?
Yeah.
Is that for the Tomb Kings or is that just some other random?
Yeah.
Like what? I'm trying to think of what other general use transfers there might be that we could ever want.
That's a good spot. I just read that. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's quite strange.
I guess we just have to wait and see. But yeah, and it's interesting too, as you say, about the size of the armies, because the photos, the way they've set out these armies, those units look pretty small. I guess it might just be to enhance the site, like to make these boxes look more impressive, I suppose, because if they literally just had a unit of 12 knights and a unit of 36 Men-at-Arms, it would probably be not that impressive. But I'm sort of hopeful that these units are like representative of how the game actually plays best.
Yeah.
In which case, you're looking at units of 18 Men-at-Arms, which would be kind of cool. I mean, in the photos, they've got them 6 wide, but maybe that's to do with their horde rules, or I don't know. We just have to wait and see a little bit.
It's a good box, the Bretts. I like what's in it compared to the Tomb Kings. Just going off, just the horsemen. I haven't seen a lot of horsemen getting used, so obviously I'm hoping the rules have changed to make stuff more viable. But I could see you probably, or people using the Brett box like in its entirety a little bit more. I don't know. What do you think about the 16 horsemen?
I think we really have to wait and see what the actual rules are.
That's it.
I don't think we can draw too much from the 6 or 8. I don't. How popular were they in 8th? I feel like they were around a little bit in 8th. I can't remember.
Were they?
I don't know, but in 6 they weren't that great, and I don't know. Well, I hope they're viable. They're in the core box.
A bit more like heavier sort of, rather than like a light troop. Because obviously light troops, you only light, not light troops, bloody
like fast cav.
Fast cav, yeah. You only really have so many fast cav in most armies, so it would be good if they had like a fast cav option and maybe a heavier option as well.
Yeah,
to utilize those.
For sure. And maybe, because that's the other thing they really suffered from was they couldn't operate very far from the center of the army as well.
Yeah.
In terms of mobility, so I
Yeah.
feel like they always suffered a lot from that. But I don't know. I guess we'll
wait and see.
to wait and see. But yeah, because if they're not viable, there's going to be a lot of skeleton horsemen on eBay.
Yeah.
People are like,
It's
what are we doing with
yeah.
16 horsemen? I don't want these horsemen.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened with the old Wood Elf boxes. I felt like the I forget what they're called. The Wood Elf, not the Wild Riders. The other horsemen they had the fast cav.
The Glade Riders.
The Glade Riders. Because they came in that box. In 8th edition, I just found it was just flooded on eBay because people, just couldn't use them that much. You might have 1 unit, 2 units, but
you wouldn't have more than 2 for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
Right.
So obviously the rule book. Everyone's
the big blue book.
Yeah. So will also be available separately. So obviously, as was spoken, quite a large book, weighty 352 pages, featuring over 70 pages of background, which I reckon is pretty cool. Pretty cool background.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm loving the background, the dedication that they're putting into this.
Yeah.
And that they mentioned further down in the other books as well. Like it's
Yeah.
exciting, And this is like a new era that we haven't, it's been mentioned in the other book, obviously lots of other army books and stuff. Oh, this happened in this period, that type
but not
of thing.
expanded, yeah.
Yeah, they gives you a chance to really expand on and make a whole new level of fluff and interest, which isn't to do with the end of the world, Like I'm excited to read it.
Yeah. So what's it break down into the core and advanced rules of the game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's face it, obviously you need both. It's funny, like you find some games they got they almost put it in the basic rules, like you can almost play a game, but I find you can't really play a game with those.
I feel like you do it maybe if you were learning for the first time, the first game you play might just be core rules, but then I feel like from then on everyone would probably just play advanced. I think it's important to have that just to make a game a bit more accessible, maybe.
True.
Yep. Because it's pretty dense.
I
feel like most of the people that are playing it will be experienced gamers, but I feel like it is important to try to maintain some kind of accessibility to people that haven't really played it before.
Yeah, it would be quite daunting going through those 100-odd special rules, whatever they got. So there's an explanation of the Winds of Magic and the rules for casting spells. The Gallery of Armies, as always, from the Heavy Metal Studio. The rules for building armies, setting up your battlefield, and it's also going to be released as an EPUB. I'm not a huge EPUB fan, personally.
No, I've never bought one.
No.
Only ever got the books.
Yeah.
I don't even own a tablet, so.
Oh well, yeah. I've got a tablet. I've got I won't mention any companies. I do have a PDF version of some books of descriptions. I won't really get into, but they can be quite hard to navigate. You're sort of like scrolling up and down, and like a book to me just seems you can kind of have your little what do you call them, like post-it notes and things like that. Just quick little,
They're searchable though, aren't they? Like you could use like a search term in those.
Yeah, you can, and they usually got like a menu that you can go to as well. But I don't know. I like it.
I mean, I like the book in that you start to after you've used it for a while, you have a good feeling about where things are.
Where
in
it
the book.
is, yeah.
You can find it relatively easily, just from memory almost. I must admit, I do like that 6ed app on the website. That searchable rulebook is
Oh yeah, that's
because the 6th ed book is a mess.
Yeah.
So finding rules in that book is awful.
Yeah.
So I've definitely been appreciating more and more just being able to use my phone and find rules that I need in that book in that way.
Yeah. No, 100%.
That being said, I think I always at least want to have the paper copy on hand regardless. And then I'm not sure if I'd buy an EPUB as well as the main book. I feel like it's a bit of a waste of money, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. Having the physical book is nice, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, cost-wise, Rulebook, I dare say you'd be looking in the 70 to 80 range. I'd be hazarding a guess. So they're not super cheap, really.
Yeah, at least.
That's Australian, obviously. Yeah. So unfortunately, Australia tend to pay. We've got the Aussie tax. So yeah, stuff tends to be a smidge more expensive in Australia. That's also obviously accounting for, the conversion rate. It's funny because a lot of stuff I actually get sent over I'll buy it, is from the UK. My Games Workshop stuff, like new in box, new on sprue, it's just obviously it must be so much cheaper over there. So even converting to pounds, it still works out, and having it sent over postage, it still works out cheaper than buying it from Australia. So that goes to show, obviously, there is a bit of a big difference there.
Yeah, for sure. It hurt a bit when eBay had to start charging GST on those, but even then, it still often works out cheaper.
Nah, I think there was something about it, and somebody asked GW about places like Australia. I think Canada was a little bit more expensive as well, asking why there was a bit of a premium price, and they just said, oh, just because they pay for it. Like there's no drop in sales for it to be bumped up a little bit. They just thought it was the right price range. I don't know how true that is, but yeah, I definitely read that somewhere. Anyway, going into this has caused a bit of concern amongst other people from what I've been reading online. I personally like it, but we'll go into it and discuss it. So the rules have been basically broken into separate books and entities. So the first is going to be your Forces of Fantasy and Ravening Hordes. So all 9 factions in the game will be available at launch in one of 2 tombs covering the Forces of Good and Evil. So respectively, the Forces of Fantasy and the Ravening Hordes. Forces of Fantasy is a 192-page book available in hardback and EPUB forms, covering the 5 factions, who's going to be the Dwarven Mountain Holds, Empire of Man, Kingdom of Bretonnia, Wood Elf Realms, and the High Elf Realms. Each army gets an introduction, a gallery of miniatures, Grand Army composition list, which is what we were sort of discussing the other day, between the Grand Army and obviously the other specialist sort of lists that you're going to have. A complete set of unit profiles, so you'll have no need for a separate army book to play, even though you probably will. Special rules, magic items, and unique spells. The Ravening Hordes contains all the evil factions. So there's only 4 evil versus 5 good. So that's 160 pages. Hardback ebook again. So it's got Orc and Goblin tribes, the Warriors of Chaos, the Beastmen, Bray Herds, and the Tomb Kings. So obviously you're going to need the rule book and one of these as a minimum. So absolutely. Yeah. Did you want to have a chat or just go straight into the journals and then have a chat?
I'll talk. I feel like they didn't need to call them good or evil. I actually quite like the names they've come up with. Forces of Fantasy and reusing Ravening Hordes, and I feel like that could have just been the name of each book. It's confusing to turn it into a dichotomy like that, especially for some of the evil ones that are kind of like not necessarily evil, they're just chaotic, or they're sort of like the Orcs and Goblins, or they're sort of just neutral, or like the Tomb Kings without, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the Wood Elves is sort of a bit grey as well. Like they're kind
Yeah.
of like they're not the super fluffy, nice elves. They're sort of the
No,
badass.
absolutely. The way they
Stay out of
expanded
my
their
forest.
fluff, yeah, they
Yeah,
sounded more and more, chaotic and self-serving and
yeah,
ethereal. Like it was kind of cool though when they did that.
yeah,
But they're just plonking them into the forces of good. It simplifies things a bit too much, I feel.
yeah.
It's interesting that there's no fluff mentioned in that description of the book,
Yep.
whatsoever. So we'll talk about the Arcane Journal shortly, where and people are like up in arms about all the different books, but
Yeah.
like these, I feel like these two books are pretty stripped down. Like,
Yeah.
They've had to jam in quite a lot into each of these books.
Yeah.
And there isn't much fluff in there. There's nothing else really in there apart from rules by the way it reads anyway. The description, apart from the
Yeah.
intro,
Yeah.
and a few photos, like gallery of painted guys. I feel like they've tried to jam it as much as they could into these. But I don't mind that. Like it's very reminiscent of the Horus Heresy release where they had the loyalist and traitor as the initial release, and and had all the different rules for each side in those books.
Yep.
And Lord of the Rings one where they had the the armies of Lord of the Rings and the armies of the Hobbit releases as well.
Yeah.
It's how they do specialist games these days.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And it is really nice because it makes it so much more accessible to be able to look at other armies' rules rather than having to try to. I don't want to buy this whole other army book.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, that is a good point. Actually, that's a really good point.
yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. Well, I'm not too sure. I'm somewhere in the middle. Like, it doesn't bother me having the multiple books overly, other than the fact that you might have to look up multiple books for different rules and making armies. You might be going back and forth a bit, even though I can definitely see there's going to be apps that are going to help you achieve that within time. People always seem to make things that are going to make processes quicker. I'm just wondering with the point structure, if this is going to be something that's going to be like can get re-released, not super often, but often enough to maybe fix up, point discrepancies and things like that. And obviously the other thing as well, which we were discussing about having a live sort of world, like as in like it's a moving time period, with that fluff, and then obviously having different characters coming in, and just keeping it as like a moving entity, like a living, breathing sort of fantasy world, where that is going to be encompassed if they did do that, or is it simply going to be almost like old Warhammer where they just keep on bringing stuff out, but like you can have characters from any sort of time period, if you get me. Like it's not like it's a moving time period.
Yeah, that's yeah. I feel like that seems more likely that they'll bring out other stuff that you can just sort of plug in without having to change up the whole list. Which again was something in Lord of the Rings I did, where they'd release certain characters in the expansions. Some of the characters would be quite historical characters, like I think Helm Hammerhand was one example. Which was a character from that well preceded the Third Age, or was it the Third Age? It was preceding like the actual Lord of the Rings setting. And he came with a certain rule set which you could create an army around that character. But it was all within the context of you'd still use him in that list, but with certain limitations about different units that weren't around in that period. But so you could still, essentially, they still release a character from a different era that was usable in the game, and you use the same books essentially. But you just had to use a certain unit variant to be able to sort of make the whole list sort of valid, I suppose. So it does create a lot of flexibility that you can sort of just bolt on certain new units into these things, and if you create the right limitations, it can work really well as a themey sort of option.
Yeah,
Which I'm
I just
hoping to see.
for some reason I just thought it was kind of going to build up to the Great Chaos Invasion.
Yeah, I think
at
so.
some
Yeah, I
point.
was thinking so too. I don't know how they're going to do that.
Yeah,
I don't know how they're going to do that because I feel like you're right. Like because they sort of hit each army once with a supplement.
Yep.
And then they're not really going to go back to it, are they? Like that's like, right. This is
Well,
Tomb
yeah.
Kings to Bretonnia done.
Yeah.
It's like okay.
Unless they start, that might be sort of like the next generation of the old world. Maybe they're just trying to get it all this part out, and then, like I think it's like Age of Sigma, like the first edition was quite just trying to get stuff out, and then obviously the second and third has added on these extra bits that's made it so popular.
Yeah, possibly.
So yeah,
but I'd love to see the non-core factions supported as well eventually. It does feel
100%.
really weird having only 9 factions.
Yeah,
honestly, in a game that we used to have so much variety.
Yeah, and it's sort of having the Grand Army composition when it talks about the PDFs only, having a support for a Grand Army. But now you can see the Arcane Journals, which we'll obviously hit on in a sec, has obviously additional support for those the main armies.
Yeah.
Which
So shall we go through the journals then?
Yeah. So obviously, the addition to all these, which is it kind of states it's not a necessity to play, even though for competitive play and pretty much 95% of people out there, it kind of will be a necessity, is the Arcane Journals. So, in addition to the 2 lots of the hardback books, there are the Arcane Journals. So there's softbacks for each faction that expands in all of its history, as Josh was just talking about before. Doesn't seem like there's any fluff in the Ravening Horde sort of style books.
No.
The heraldry, the maps, which everybody loves, especially me.
Love it.
The special characters, which everybody loves the special characters. Including a certain
special characters. I actually missed that. Yes, there's no special characters in the main books then.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So including a certain undead emperor.
Yeah, that'd be Cetra, would it? Or
color me intrigued. I'm trying to work out. Yeah, Cetra, you reckon?
Don't know.
That would make sense because it's only going to be the Bretonians and the Tomb Kings coming out, wouldn't it? So there you go. The magic items, so additional spells. So these will be probably would be your specific spells for that army. A historical scenario, which is pretty good. The thematic armies of infamy, which sound fantastic.
Yeah, so excited about that.
Yeah. You select your armies from different compositions, which, like you can see, they're just going to have, just give you a completely dynamic way to play from your traditional way of playing for those factions. So, for instance,
super excited, isn't it? It's like a real callback to 6th rather than 8th, where lots of themed individual lists that are like really part of the game. Even the Bretonians, like there was no back in the book list in the Bretonian original army book.
Yeah.
So the only other theme list we had, even in 6, was just the Errantry War list from the Storm of Chaos.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And that was it. Like that was the only other themey option that we had in terms of actual rules support. So even this is already more exciting because you got, I think it wasn't the Exiles list. Actually, it might be mentioned later on. Is it mentioned? Yeah, it's actually mentioned in the next paragraph. Either Bretonian Exiles or the Errantry Crusades. So it's like, so excited to see. I mean, I'm not sure personally, Andrew. I'm not much of a one for black powder, for bombards and that type of thing. So I'm not sure how much. I mean, I probably will play with Exiles at some point. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Exiles would be like the Borderlands type thing, isn't it? Where because they referenced it the other week, where it was like you might be able to use bombards, and maybe I will give it a try. But I'm a lot more excited about Errantry Crusades. I just love the errant knights. I just love having loads and loads of errant knights and having them zoom across the board in chaos.
Yeah. So was that the same one that was in the Storms of Chaos?
Yeah.
That was the Errantry
Crusade.
Yeah.
It was Errantry War then, and there's Errantry Crusades here. But yeah, similar rules. But that's I know it's the same thing. But fluff, I still love that fluff.
Yeah.
My favorite fluff.
No, that'd be good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they'll put a spin on it where it's going to be having its own flavor, not just a carbon copy from Storms of Chaos.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, those rules are a bit zany in the Storm of Chaos, where you could roll like an extra D6 for pursue rolls and stuff. And, everything had an errantry banner for free, and you could have a Ground Knight champion in the unit of the unit errant knights. Like a whole lot of random things in there, which I don't imagine will be. In this book, although if they did, that'd be really funny. Interesting that they mentioned spells in the Arcane Journals. They mention unique spells up in the army books as well.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see what spells are where, I suppose. Because as you were saying, like there's a lore of the lady in some of the entry lists for Bretonnia. As we were breaking down a few months ago. Because we were trying to work out were they going to have extra spells you could sub in for certain. If you had a certain level of casting, could you use like your army special spell or something like that, or would it be a signature spell? I have no idea. I'm excited to find out.
No, it's good. It's like more fluff, and I'm sure it'll be balanced out in a way where you might have to have like a certain, like you said, a certain army, or obviously, these certain themed armies with the armies of infamy, they might have something attached to it, which is pretty cool, really, because that gives it definitely a stronger flavor. But have to wait.
The limitations are just as important in creating that flavor, I reckon. Like as much as it enables 100%. Certain things, you've also got to have limits on others.
Bit of balance.
Yeah. I can imagine. Like the exiles will not be able to have ground knights or something like that. I reckon that'd be plausible.
What the Tomb Kings? They've got the Nehekaran Royal Host and the Mortuary Cults, which sound pretty cool.
Yeah, sounds interesting. I really don't know what they are. I wish Colin was here, or Gomer was here to tell us what that implies. The
Mortuary Cults sound cool. Just sounds like this.
No, it sounds cool. Not gonna lie. But I don't really have any particular insight to either of those.
No. It would be cool if they sort of like give it a bit of flavor as well. Like, if it sounds like these exiles, Bretonnian exiles, I'm assuming they're going to have links with the Empire, probably using Empire models. I'm just wondering if like some of these you might have, like just say with vampire accounts. I know obviously we're not getting them, but the Mortuary Cults, maybe you might have like living cultists, maybe. I don't know. Just you might just have this fluff. Yeah, where you just got these like, you never know. I was just sort of because I know like with vampire counts how they were they've actually got living people in the realm as well that sort of serve them too. It's not everyone's actually undead. They've actually got sort of they take peasants and stuff to war, and it's sort of it's all pretty cool. You never really see that on the in 6th you did, but not in like 8th or anything like that. So that'd be cool seeing that return.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see how many new units are put in these armies of infinity. How many other additional options they put in? Because that'd be pretty cool. Now I don't know. What do you feel about this is like 3 books now. We've already got 2.
Yep.
We've got the rule book, the army book, and then the supplement army book.
Yep.
Because I think there has been a bit of mixed reaction to this.
Yeah. Very, very. Well,
I'm surprised, really, but.
You're surprised at what, the reactions or the books?
The reaction.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think the reactions coming out are quite negative. I wouldn't say there wasn't a lot of positive reactions. I think it's just probably I wouldn't say the same people, but it's to me, I don't know. I'm glass half full with this whole release. Most of the stuff I've liked is cool. Most of the stuff you're getting here is pretty cool. Like you said, there's going to be benefits to the Ravening Horde style books where you're not just getting one, your own singular army that you go through. You're getting 4 or 5, depending on good versus evil, of stuff in there. And like you said, you can go through other people's armies, and I reckon it's. Look, it comes down to price point. I think if they're coming in at like a 3-figure book, $100 and something, probably starting to take the piss. But
that's true. It all comes down to price point. You're right.
Yeah, if it's not
like $150 each, I'll be like, oh, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, I feel like the armies would be very playable out of the main books. Like, I know everyone's going on about how you need the Arcane Journal. Like, they're all. I mean, it's all theoretical, really, because we have no idea really what's in the Arcane Journal, apart from how they describe it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's it gives you extra options with the thematic lists and the special characters and that type of thing.
Yeah.
But by no means is it really strongly needed for you to be able to play, and have a reasonably competitive and interesting game. To have that as part of it, like really, your main Grand Army composition list, which most armies are going to be, are already in the main book. Like I really, I don't think there's a problem with that, and like I also feel like there's no way they could have fitted in all the fluff and history and maps for each faction into the main book. Like that would have just made it ridiculously massive, I feel. And then the other thing is, if they've done all that and put all the armies of Infinity in those main books for each faction, then it's like, where else do we go now? Like, how do we keep this game sort of interesting and alive? Like, what's the next release after this? It's all out. Whereas I feel like being able to do little piecemeal at once. I mean, people would be like, "Oh, it's like DLC. It's like just they're just dripping it out." I feel like that sounds bad. Like, is it then we're able to look forward to the next pair, because I imagine they come out in pairs again, and I don't know if they'll have a whole army box. In the future, like will they have Orcs and Goblins versus Empire or something like that, and then the Arcane Journals with them? I don't know, but I do like the idea that these little journals are going to keep being released, and it'll just freshen up the game and create more interests and options. But I don't. The main thing that would scare me, Andrew, is if each book progressively gets more powerful, like the Arcane Journals. Like if there's power creep going on, and each time it's progressively, it sort of beats out the previous releases. That would have me concerned. If it was suddenly on a treadmill like that, like how they used to do it with Age of Sigmar. But my gut feeling and really my hope is that that's not going to be the case, and each release will just be adding on just more options without adding on layers of powerfulness. And just have nice levels of fluff and that type of thing. That's all I really want to be seeing. And I feel like this is, I can't imagine a better way of doing it than this, really. Like, it's either this or you're doing your individual army books with a Ravening Horde style PDF, and then doing your individual army books. I don't know. I feel like this is a better way of supporting the game as a whole.
Yeah, especially for like you're saying, at least supporting the launch of it. I mean, this is only the first edition of the Old World. Doesn't mean they can't find something better, the second edition. Like you said, other than coming out with all the rule books for everybody straight away, but then you're not going to have supported armies or anything like that. I think this is pretty smart, and right, you might have to throw another $50 at the 2 books rather than having, just one large army book. Now you're getting the large Ravening Hordes and then a small sort of paperback. I can't see these paperbacks like the Arcane Journals being stupidly expensive. They don't look overly large. And I think they're sort of reading the room and know that people wouldn't be overly happy if you got to buy multiple $100 books, like $300 and something books. Like people just...
that would be ridiculous if it was. Yeah, their soft cover. They look fairly small. They don't really say the page number, but they look. Yeah. Quite small. I don't think they'll be that expensive. One would hope. I feel like I'm likely to buy both of the main army list books. What do you think? Do you think you'll buy the good and like the Forces of Fantasy and the Ravening Hordes?
Just trying to think who I'll be playing.
Yeah, it depends who you're playing. Because there's Gobos and Warriors of Chaos and Beastmen and Tomb Kings in the Ravening Hordes one.
I just got rid of all my Chaos. I've got most of mine are going to be on PDFs. I'm going to have Skaven. I'll have Vamps, and I'll have who else have I got? My bloody Chaos Dwarves. So
yeah, right. And you got High Elves and Dwarves in the Forces of Fantasy anyway. Yeah. Fair enough.
So they're my 5 current armies for now.
For now. So you start making a Beastman army.
Nah. I want to get Wood Elves. I've always wanted Wood Elves, but just...
Oh, well, that's fortunate. And you still just need the one book then.
Yeah, I know.
See how convenient that is.
But that's why I like Wood Elves. Like we're discussing, they're kind of... High Elves are a bit too
prissy.
Yeah.
Too goody.
Wood Elves are sort of a bit badass. So
yeah.
Anyway, shall we hit these miniatures?
Yeah, let's do it. Again, this is probably one that it would have been good for Gobbo's reaction because I think he was kind of excited about these, wasn't he? Especially the first one.
Yeah. I hope I don't obliterate this name, so forgive me. Nekaf, I'm guessing.
Nekaf?
Yeah,
Nekaf? I think it's
Nekaf?
Yeah, Nekaf.
Yeah, that sounds better. Emissary of Cetra. So Cetra, the imperishable, has accumulated truly... Oh, geez, here we go. Prodigious number of... Oh, geez.
Prodigious number of epithets and achievements.
There you go. I need a dictionary here. Over the long centuries of his unlife. And this seemingly endless list of titles and victories is recounted in full by his loyal servant, Nekaf. Before each battle, luckily, animated skeletons are very patient. There's another one of those jokes. Armed with the enchanted flail of conquered kings, Nekaf, emissary of Cetra, pulverizes those who refuse to kneel before his immortal liege. So, I mean, what's he got? He's got his so it's like his long list of achievements. So he's like the caller, the guy who comes out before the knight or the king or whoever and just says, this is
the herald, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. This is Cetra, and then cries out his long list of achievements to his soon-to-be conquered enemy.
This would be very patient to wait for all those glorious achievements to be called out.
Yes. He does look pretty cool, but he's like just there, just with this screaming open mouth, just crying out the achievements. I like them.
Yeah, I like it. I like how long that ridiculous scroll is, and it goes all the way from the top. And he's such a high model too, sitting on a ridiculous rock plinth, the tactical rock. Yeah. And then that scroll is going all the way down his feet and then down further. It's got the right level of tomb kittiness. It feels a bit old hammer. It's not overdone at all.
Yeah.
I like the scarabs going up. That's a nice touch.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool model.
Yeah, it is. It's got some
I think it's a
stupid,
cool model.
huge mace hanging off him, like some of the Age of Sigmas, and to get a bit silly in the weapons department and armor department.
Yeah. Do you think that him standing on that massive rock will hide the scale creep a bit better?
It will be large.
It
It'll be
won't be.
large.
It'll be harder to tell.
Yeah, but it's going to be higher than the BSB, which is funnily enough coming up.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we'll hit the BSB. He's actually kind of crouched down, this guy.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
crouched right down.
Royal Heralds are the personal champions of the Nehekarian royalty. Mighty combatants in life who retain their strength in undeath despite their withering forms. The greatest of these champions often bear banners featuring the personal heraldry of their masters, inspiring the deathly legions that accompany them into battle. Yeah, I reckon this banner is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It's got some real style to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. The guy sort of holding it is a little bit weird because it's kind of hunched over a bit. The banner, I love the banner.
Yeah, the banner itself is really, really nicely designed.
There's little weapons, pretty cool.
Yeah, I love the weapons either side. I love the skeleton in the center, the little jewel on the top of his head.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's sort of gaudy, but I feel like that fits pretty well with this sort of army. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's nice. It's odd that he's so bent over, but I don't mind that. I think it gives a fairly unique sort of posture. Like we haven't seen many models dynamically hunched over like that.
Yeah. Well, you think most undead are sort of these shambling sort of. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's
no
pretty
particular
cool.
problems with it. Yep. And then next we've got the Tomb Swarm, isn't it?
Yep, and next coming up is Tomb Swarms. So Lich Priests of the Mortuary cults are well versed in the dark arts of necromancy. They'll bolster their armies of their masters with writhing tomb swarms comprised of reanimated scorpions, scarabs, and all other critters that infest the necropolises. These shifting, swirling masses can overpower well-trained combatants with a storm of bites and stings.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear your thoughts on these. Do you like them?
Yeah, I do. I think they're really creative. I feel like they've gone and thought up a whole bunch of different like little skeleton things and just like chucked them on there. Like you can see little lizard things and actual full skeletons and a whole lot of scarabs in there. I quite like it. I feel like it might be a little bit divisive.
Yeah.
But I personally don't mind them. Even the scorpion on the top of one of them too. Yeah, a lot of detail and it looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I reckon they're better than the traditional swarm bases for sure. Some of them are a little bit over the top, but I reckon just give it some time and I'll get used to them. Out of everything, I just thought the other two I thought were really good, and then these I was like, I might have to grow to love them. But yeah, I think they're heaps better than the standard. You know, the old school swarms used to get
like the flat little scarabby
yeah,
things.
Yeah. These are a lot more three-dimensional.
Yeah, they're not very eye-catching, those ones. I mean, they're probably true to the fluff, but
yeah,
these are. Yeah, I mean, I guess they could have been maybe a little bit less tall.
Yeah.
I guess like they're quite imposing. But yeah, the details on them and the intricacy of them. Yeah. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think they're like cool. I just within the theme of what I'm used to, I suppose. But I mean, just give it some time with other releases. Like obviously, I think they're trying to make these new models fit in, but at the same time, be their own new sort of range that are going to fit into within that new realm of things.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the old world definitely has got its own sort of aesthetic more.
Yeah,
so
100%.
It is different to Middle or Oldhammer. But that's to be expected, Like I'm glad they haven't gone all the way down a really highly over-designed route. Like they have managed to restrain themselves to some extent.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't mind these tomb swarms.
Nah, I think it was just the first time when I saw them. I was trying to work out actually what they were.
What they were?
I didn't see the tomb swarm bit. I just quickly went down the picture. I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, tomb swarm. I was like, oh. So anyway,
yeah.
So we'll keep moving. That's pretty much actually it, isn't it? So
pretty much. I mean, well, yeah. What do they say? They're getting the whole range, and then then the other factions. Yeah, that's interesting though, isn't it? So the next paragraph is they just talk about how these are just the first 2 of 9 factions.
Yep.
And look out for the miniature releases for the other 7 in due course.
Yeah.
Man, I was really hoping they would have more than just Bretts and Tomb Kings at launch.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, they're selling all these rules, all these books to play with these armies.
Yeah.
Trying to, especially if you're trying to attract new people, not just people that already have armies. And they'll be like, oh, can I buy some wood elves? Like, no, we don't have any wood elves for you.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just that, it's 2 things, obviously. I think it's just like the scale of it is obviously quite large, because they're not creating something new. It's like reintroducing it, I suppose. But yeah, like you said, it's like in due course. Like what are we talking about? Like if they did them all within a year, I wouldn't be too worried. But any longer than that, I think that would be a bit ridiculous. But
I suspect it might be. I don't know. Like, I reckon there may be once every. Let's say if it was once every 3 months, and they had in 2 pairs. Books at each. Yeah, 3. It was pairs.
Yeah.
Then that'd be 2, 6, 8. So, you might get them all done by this time next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's maybe that'd be.
Yeah, 3 months. I think that's not too bad.
Yeah. That's plausible.
Well, you kind of already know they're coming out, don't you? Like you said, you got the rules, but you just, you don't have the armies. Although I wonder, it's one of those things. Like, how many new players do you reckon you're going to be getting straight away? Like, maybe they're just basing this first edition around just getting the rules out there, getting the old guys back in, which seems to be the main, attractant for these old people. Not old people, but the older players.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
they're certainly aimed at the core nostalgic group who previously, like, certainly the rules are very much lifted from those old games, and some of it is like there's a bit of streamlining going on, especially the Magic phase, but the rest of it's pretty true to the old styles of Warhammer, so I don't feel like it hasn't really been dumbed down from the rules we've seen, or simplified or streamlined, I guess is probably a better word. Sorry. But which means it's not necessarily as accessible as they might have made it if they were really trying to attract a lot of new young players. I feel like there is a fertile ground there that could be, just because of Total War. Like there's a lot of people that have just played that video game and never played Warhammer. It was funny because wasn't commentating the other week. It was like he was playing Warhammer, or you guys were both playing Webster, and then his daughter's friends came by and they're like, "Oh, look, Tomb Kings!"
Yeah. There are a lot of people. It's a good game too.
They're there, and all they need to know, all they need to get is exposed to a living rule set, and they may well pick it up.
Well,
they're not
that's
going to
it.
do it if they don't have any miniatures to buy.
Nah.
Because the other thing is, it's like it's not just they don't have any miniatures. Like, sure, they're releasing Bretonnians and Tomb Kings. It's like, yeah, their secondhand prices have been, they're ridiculous, like gold.
Yeah.
And have been for years because it's been, they weren't that popular at the end, and there wasn't, there's been a relative scarcity of those miniatures.
Yeah.
But now they're having a big release where, yeah, sure, those miniatures are being released, but those other 7 factions will have no miniatures, but new rules.
Yeah,
I suspect that the secondhand price for those armies for the next, for whatever time it is till the proper release is, the next 3, 6, 9 months, surely those secondhand prices for the existing stuff in stock is just going to absolutely skyrocket. If the old world's popular, if people want to get into it, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to make this army. So then, but we can't buy new models, so we're going to have to go to the secondhand market to get, I want to do an Orc and Goblin army, but I can't, kind of thing. Like if anything, it's gonna worsen, the pressure on prices on the secondhand market for stuff that QW isn't stocking.
Yeah, no,
bit
100%.
of a unintended effect, I feel. But I think that's if they're not supplying the market, that's what's going to happen, surely.
Yeah. Well, I want to see how many more models are actually going to be, because obviously, looking at what they're providing in the boxes, it's maybe a third of the models, maybe half
of the range.
Yeah. Well, you're missing quite a lot of stuff there.
It says in that article, a full range of classic Khemri miniatures. It doesn't say the full range. I don't know if that's an intentional distinction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would expect, I would hope that most of the, like your Ground Knights and Questing Knights and stuff will be released as well, not just the
you will
plastics.
have problems getting those. Definitely.
Those are hideously expensive.
Yeah, 100%. And if they're
some of them are collector's items.
Yeah. And if the old world's coming out and they've got none of these models, like you're saying, I'd hate to see what Ground Knights would set you back these days. Or there's a few Green Knights getting around, but some of those Lords getting quite scarce. I mean, the Yeomen are friggin'. Jeez.
Yeah, the Yeomen are like $50 each. You know, you set yourself back like $250 for a unit. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah. So
Aussie
hopefully they're releasing, models for all these things and not relying on people to hitting up the secondhand market. So it'd be good to see what they're actually. Surely there's going to be a lot more models than just these. But how many? I mean, yeah. Well, it's one of those things, isn't it? To wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Be quite patient, I guess. Yeah, unless you have existing armies, you're stuck with playing Bretonnians and Tomb Kings.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much what it feels like right now.
Yeah,
but it's the only way they can restart it, isn't it? Like, yeah, I don't think they were ever going to have. I mean, this is the nature of it, as you say. It's like a massive game, really. They've tried to reduce the scope by cutting it back to 9 factions. But they were never going to get the backing to re-release the entire game in one hit.
Not in one hit.
But there's I guess what I'm saying is, there's a range of unintended consequences of that.
Yeah.
And one of them is that, I feel like secondhand prices for some of those re-release factions that haven't got new releases yet are, going to be pretty in demand.
Yeah.
If this is popular.
And they're not cheap as we're talking at the moment.
It's already not cheap. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's already ridiculous. And it's actually just going to make it worse until those factions get released.
Yeah.
But they're just having to take it step by step. And I am looking forward to whatever new factions can come next. I'm expecting that they will have new models for each one, mainly new characters, I suppose.
Yeah.
And yes, there is going to be ongoing scale creep, but we can't avoid that. I mean, looking at the photos of even the emissary and the BSB, like these are on 25s, right? They're not on 20s, so they're pretty chunky.
Big. Yeah.
Even the hunched guy
the hunch guy.
He's probably going to be just as tall as the regular skeletons that are standing
Which is
upright.
weird. It's like the BSB just seems so short compared to this emissary. This emissary is going to be big.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nice, but yeah, it's just tall.
Do you reckon the skellies are going to be up to his shin, or?
Yeah,
I can't imagine they're going to be knee height. I reckon they might be like
they'll break the knee.
I
don't know. Might hit the kneecap.
Might hit the kneecap. Okay,
yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Oh dear. All right.
Yeah.
I think that's all. Yeah. So then they just leave us, which is really unnecessary. Just leave it open is the pre-order date.
Yeah.
Like that can't be more than a couple, like even 10 days away. Like I'm feeling like it's.
That's the room, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like because more and more pointing to before CanCon, maybe the 20th, which is when all the lances were released. Pre-orders to be like 2 weeks before that. That'd be 6th of January. That's only a week and a half away.
Yeah.
If that's going to be the date, it might not be. But I feel like if that was going to be the date, they might have announced it by now. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they seem like they're at a point with all their announcements and everything that they've got, the products are, there to a certain extent.
It's all ready to go. They're just, it's all building up.
To a big climax. It does make sense to be within that time frame that people have guesstimated / slightly in the know of. Which would be cool because, like you said, it's just around the corner, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is very, very exciting start to the new year.
Yeah.
It's been a fun Christmas.
Break open the piggy bank and start ordering some books.
Look, we're not buying 2 boxes of Tomb Kings, so I don't think we'll have to.
Nah. Well, I probably won't get any of these miniatures at the moment. I'll just be getting the books.
The books. Yeah, I agree. I want the books.
Yeah. Well, you've got Brett's, and like obviously you're invested in Brett's.
I've got ample Brett's. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, I sold off the last of my not last, but most of my 6Z Bretts that I had sitting around on sprues anyway a few months ago because I'm like, my Bretts are Hybrid Army's 5th edition themed, and that's probably what I'm going to be sticking with, to be honest. So I'm likely to buy the box. There'll be loads of Bretts after the box is released anyway, so it's not really that useful.
So what's your old world? You're still up in the air because obviously you got your woodies.
As in what army I'll be playing with?
Yeah, your first old world army.
Because I'll be using the Bretts to play with them for sure.
Okay, yep. But you're not going to rebase, obviously.
Nah, well, I don't want to rebase.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to maintain compatibility to previous editions if I can.
Yeah.
So I fully intend to try to do
converters,
but it really depends a little bit on how the game actually plays. In terms of, is there formation changing often in the game, that type of thing? Yeah. If there isn't, then move and trade converters will be really easy. So yeah, I'd probably go Bretts for. I would love to play the Bretts to start off with because you just gotta. It's been 20 years of the same book, so I really can't wait for
the
to
next
be able to
edition.
finally play a new book published by Games Workshop that wasn't in 2003. And then I'd probably do the woodies and or the dark elves. Maybe play with them as well once I've done them because I'll be working on those. What about you? What would your first?
I'll be going probably the elves. And I don't know. I'm just bored of dwarves the way they play, so I'll have to have a look at this. And I can't see them playing different in the Forces of Fantasy. So I'll probably have to wait until the Arcane Journal comes out, and hopefully they're going to have a quicker list that isn't the Slayer list. I've got nothing against the Slayer list, but I just don't have that many Slayers. I've got about 40 Slayers, so I'd have to get a hell of a lot more Slayers. And that's another thing too. Like, if they're bringing back, like, the I forget what it's called. Is it the Goblin Hewer? Is that the Troll Slayer one?
Rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah, throws the axes.
Yeah.
I'd hate to see what that would be going for if they don't, if it's in the book, the Arcane Journal, but they don't actually bring the model out because it's already, you're pushing $200. So
was that a Forge World model?
Nah.
Or was it just a regular model?
Nah, it's just a regular.
Okay. But it wasn't released for very long.
Nah, because it came out as part of the. Was it the? It's one of the Chaos invasions anyway. So what was the Hordes of Chaos? That was the other big supplementary, wasn't it? I think it must have been Hordes of Chaos.
You're talking about 8th edition?
Nah, no, 6th edition, wasn't it?
You're talking about 6th edition. Oh,
no,
you say Storms of Chaos or Hordes of Chaos?
Storms of Chaos, sorry, Storms of Chaos.
Oh, right.
It came out with the Goblin Hewer and the Vengeance Seeker or Doom Seeker or something.
Yeah.
The guy with the whirling axes.
Oh, okay, yeah, from the Slayer army, yeah.
Yeah. That was the Slayer army. Yeah, it was definitely 6th edition. Yeah, sorry, Storms of Chaos. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. No, I'd be hopeful that whatever rules I put in for dwarves, they will improve their mobility and like one thing I'd like to see is that they can triple march base, like they can do marching column at all times and stuff, and because having the ability for them to move around is going to be really important for being able to have interesting diversity of scenario types, especially that involve the movement phase, because it's very limiting most of the time especially for when I've been designing scenarios lately, it's sort of like we have to try to account for dwarves because they can't move in 6
and it's just good for both players, like both players absolutely. You just get like who likes just sitting there just getting shot at, like it's not fun for either person.
For sure.
Well, it's fun, but it's not not the most fun. For diversity, like you're saying.
No, it's not really participating in one of the main elements of the game, which is the movement phase. Like it's just static.
The vibe, the Marbo. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. All right, cool.
All
right. So now you're going away next week.
Oh yeah.
Is that right? So I think I'll still be here. I'm not going away. But I think Colin will be back next week.
It's the Josh and Colin show. You gonna tell Colin that it's been overtaken? Josh is the new boss man.
Imagine if I became the host. No, it feels very bizarre.
Gummo, you're out. You're
doing the intros and outros. I think
he
does a much better job than me, I think. But the other thing to look out for is that he and I were in the podcast crossover thing we did with I think 3 other podcasts.
That's coming out soon, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think it should be coming out in the next couple of days, I think. Brian said before the end of the year, so maybe close to the weekend. We'll see.
Yeah, that sounded really interesting. Spionn on
it was a bit random, but it was fun.
Yeah.
What was it like? Play, paint, trash. Things like instead of that wasn't the marry kill thing. I don't know. Anyway, we had some ridiculous quiz things going on. Anyway, you guys can have a listen if you feel like it. So yes, so I think that's about all we need to cover, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anything else we need to cover? So I guess I can do the outro. So before we go, just a shout out to our patrons. Well, one patron, Jared. We don't expect anyone to sign up as a patron, but it does go a little way to the cost of the podcast hosting, so it's much appreciated. Anyway, thanks for listening to another Old World Fanatics podcast. If you enjoy our weekly ramblings, please give us a 5-star review on your podcast software of choice. You can also follow us on all the socials. Just search Old World Fanatics and you'll find us. We're most active on Instagram and Facebook, but you find us on Twitter and Threads, or email the show at oldworldfanatics@gmail.com. So next time, thanks for listening. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah. Cheers, Josh. Thanks, guys.